Here we go. We're recording.
Ready, set, go.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna be on board this time.
I'm gonna turn this off so that we're not
we don't get distractions.
Getting distractions, yeah.
Or make the phone buzz.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Jon and Tara podcast.
Clink.
Clink.
Ching. Ching.
Thud.
Ching.
Scrape.
Clunk. Whatever. Alright, good morning.
Morning. Well, it's almost noon, so we are pushing it out a little bit today.
Still technically morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. This is the Jon and Tara podcast, and
doing a real opening. Okay.
a real opening.
And what?
Like, comment, subscribe.
And we're not sponsored yet.
No, not even by Doom. Does Doom exist anymore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ducati owners of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get sponsored.
Yeah.
Somebody sponsor. All right, so
anybody.
Anybody.
We're open.
Well, we sponsor ourselves, so we're sponsored by Minnesota Micromolding and Machining and Manufacturing, and we're sponsored by
ETS Productions.
ETS Productions. Yeah.
There you go.
Earth to Stars.
Yeah.
Bam. All right. So what's the topic for today?
Well, I thought we could start out with tell me about your thoughts of some of my wifey wake up podcasts this week. I mean, there's some.
Maybe we should do a wifey school roulette review.
Well, nah.
No?
Nah.
Okay.
You just tell me, because you've watched them.
I don't want to be reviewed.
Well, you've watched them, and
I've watched a few, yeah.
What ones did you like this week, or what ones were controversial for you?
All right.
Yeah.
I liked the one where now they're kind of mixed up in my head, but I'll just say topics.
That's fine.
You talked about your attitude after you bought your first new vehicle with your business, profits and
did I have some attitude? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you talked about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had attitude.
You didn't?
I didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't care. I did say one time when we were going to go somewhere, and I said, "No, I'm driving." And you're like, "No, I'm going to drive." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm not going." And you're like, "Okay, you can drive."
Yeah, I do remember that now.
Yeah, and so I was being a little crabby to your crabby, maybe. I was picking up on you're starting to assert some dominance, and I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna go anywhere.
You're Trumpier than Trump. You're the ultimate Trump Meister.
Trumpier than Trump.
Yeah.
I don't.
As far as the term Trump.
Oh.
Yeah, you
trumped.
You trumped my attitude, and you're like, I don't know, girl, I got more attitude than that.
Does that come from the musical instrument, a trumpet, because the trumpet's so?
We could look it up.
So dominating in a.
They are notoriously dominating. Like in band, the conductor would always have to say, "Okay, trumpets, just I know you.
Tone it down.
I know you got forte here in this section, or you don't have forte
right
indicated in this section." They're always blasting.
I think that's probably why. It's a good place for that word to come from.
Or they have similar origins.
Yeah.
We could look it up.
So I do like what you're doing with Wifey Wake Up podcast.
Well, so I'm interested though, if you go back for a moment, you didn't necessarily, other than maybe an occasion or two, you didn't necessarily perceive that attitude in me.
No, but I don't generally perceive weak people doing strong things to them. that like, not that you're weak, but
no,
yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. There's passive personalities, right? And a passive personality is not when they come, they're usually a little more passive aggressive, right? And so when they become aggressive, or when they are asserting themselves, they perceive that it's this huge thing, right?
Yeah.
But to the people around them, depending on who they are, it might not be perceivable at all.
But this coincides too with a short that I just made for Wifey School also, that was, like, boss babes get a really bad rep. That they're too bossy, too tough, not feminine enough. And you and I talked about this a while back, that, you know, to certain guys, that's not a big deal. And I think these are kind of similar. It's like, she might be a boss babe in her realm, but if he is the boss in a totally more bigger realm, you know, like she may be the big fish in a pond, but he's the big fish
in a lake,
right? And he's like, that's cute, little fishy, you know. And I think that's probably kind of what you're saying, in that, you know, I thought I was doing big fish stuff and hands on hips, and you're like, oh, that's funny. That's
cute.
Yeah, get in the passenger seat. I know, I want to drive my truck.
Yeah, the only time I let anybody drive me around is when I'm tired, you know, and if I trust them.
Yeah.
You know, if I feel like I'm going to fall asleep or something, then I'll ask you to drive. But yeah, I don't, I just don't.
So it must have been pretty amusing for you to listen to that podcast where I'm talking about here. I'm thinking and feeling I'm all...
Well, you called yourself a biatch on it. You said I was being a biatch, and I laughed out loud, and I was like, I had to think. Like, no, you started getting a little, in my mind, in my observation, you started getting a little more particular. Right? Like, well, on the podcast, you said I left garbage in the vehicle all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave garbage in there. I left a wrapper. I left maybe a cup, maybe an empty coffee cup, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
But you're like, yeah, but where does it go when you throw it away? And I'm like, yeah, it's garbage. But we don't say you left a dump in my car, you know, because it goes to the garbage dump.
Sometimes it does look like a chipmunk has been in there. With seashells, that is.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I didn't perceive a lot. I did a little bit. You know, you were saying a few things like, you know, can you clean out the hay? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'd get busy, and then I'm sure you clean it out, and then you're like, oh, I asked him to clean it out. They'll get grumbly under your breath a little bit by yourself, and then maybe you're like, maybe you're doing the woman thing, like you're being mad at me for something I don't know you're mad about because you asked me and I didn't do it, and then you might want to put your bottle in the shade. And then and then I'm like, oh, she went to bed early tonight. Okay, I'll just watch this movie I wanted to watch.
I wanted to watch this all by myself.
She didn't want to watch this movie anyway, so I'll just watch this. That's really funny. So, I mean, and that happens, you know, and I'm cool with it. You know, I'm just like, well, you know, let's just, you know, as long as nobody's screaming and hollering, you know, everything's okay, right?
Technically, yeah, that's pretty good.
So how have I showed you that I've been miffy in the past?
Oh, you're pretty clear about it.
Okay.
Yeah. You're like, I don't want to talk, but I have to talk. You're like, I don't want to talk to you, but I have to talk to you. like you want, like you have like a man pout in a way, but it's like, like, I don't want to talk about this, but we got to talk about this. How else? You'll be like you said, well, fine, I guess we're not going then. If I'm not driving, we're not going. You'll say stuff like that, like, fine, I guess I won't do this for you anymore.
I didn't want to go there anyway.
Yeah. And whether you say fine or not, it typically
I never say fine.
Yeah, fine.
I'm not pouty. I'm man pouty.
Or, okay, I guess we're not going. Okay, I guess I won't help you with that again, ever.
No, I don't say that. I just say, I'm driving. You're not driving.
Yeah, but you asked, how do you get upset, or how do you...
Okay.
Yeah. And
so I've said that? I'm not doing that ever again then?
Oh, heck yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, let's get into it, all right.
Yeah, so if you're... I'm just going to be out...
Be careful saying what genre it's in, because we may not want certain people to know.
Then I can't tell this story.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh, no, I want you to tell. Okay.
You do want me to tell?
Yeah, just try and leave major...
Oh, it's not a specific topic.
Details out.
Generally.
Okay,
so you do help a lot in my business from a 30,000 foot level. And we have regular meetings. We strive to have weekly meetings to just kind of look look at particularly that business.
Yep.
If it involves, sometimes we'll do an overview of our Jon and Tara business, State of the Union kind of thing. And there are times where I don't necessarily agree, and I'm perhaps not as receptive as maybe a president should be to the CEO. And you're like, if we were in a typical business, you would not behave like this to the CEO. And I'd be like, I don't agree with what you're saying anyways. And you're like, fine, I won't help you anymore.
I don't think, if you're not going to listen to me, you don't need my help, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have different ways of saying it. I mean, you're creative with...
Well, I remember, and then I deleted all the text threads that I was on, and I cut off certain emails. I have been man-pouty.
Yep.
But I have, like, technical control over certain things, so I'm like, okay, all right, you busted me. I've been man-pouty.
Yeah.
Technician pouty.
Yep.
Well, nah, I guess I don't have any excuse.
I'm not asking for an excuse. I'm just...
Well, I was trying to tell you one, but...
Oh, but you don't have one.
I don't think I have one.
No, it's just the way you are. And, I mean, it works, but it's like, okay, come on,
But some of those examples have helped you to realize that there is certain super high level things going on that you do need me for, or you'd have to hire somebody else.
Or just to put in perspective, like, you're right, I haven't been in a boardroom, business has always been us, or, not in the extremely formal environment that, it's not like a suits show, right? I guess maybe is a better way to put it. And so it's easy to lose that context, right, of hierarchy and order.
Yeah.
And there is hierarchy and order for good reason. And if you are not following that way of being, you quickly create chaos.
Well, every business has what they call an org chart, right? So it's an organizational chart, and it shows, who's the manager of this, who's the boss of that, who's the CEO, who's the owner, who's the, all these different things and what roles people are in, and then it shows the hierarchical structure of those roles. Yep. And that's how businesses work. You can't bring 50 people in a room and say, all right, everybody come up with an idea, and we're going to do every single idea. And I got 50 ideas, and 20 of them are going to overlap, another 20 of them are going to conflict, and then 10 of them are going to be terrible, and you'll come out with 2 that are good if you really do that,
and people actually really get anxious.
Well, people hang on to their own ideas too, so you can't really do that. You gotta a lot of times you gotta have kind of mandated dictates kind of things, the standard operating procedures and things like that, because people can't just come up with their own ideas about how to run the business.
And a good example of that is the military, and in situations where there literally are people's lives on the line, that you may not like it, that there is an order of command, and then it's basically, not just basically, it is, you take this order or you're out, because you may not know 3 levels up what the reason is, and it has a higher reason, a greater reason than your own personal agenda or your own personal viewpoint.
Yeah.
And so, those times, while, we joke that you're man-pouting, it depends. I mean, sometimes you're like, fine, I'm not helping you anymore. And it's not a man-pout, it's like, it's basically like, I'm firing myself. I'm removing myself from the situation.
Stop saying fine.
Okay.
Because I don't say fine. I don't say fine, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay? Say it like I say it. Not identically or exactly with my tone of voice or my low voice. But
okay, then.
Alright, then I guess you don't need my help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So I won't be in those meetings, and I won't be checking all the analytics, and I won't be looking over spreadsheets, and I won't be doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Telling you the latest I learned about social media and marketing and stuff.
You can go out and hire somebody else for $250,000.
Yeah, and
because you don't pay me.
Have someone else to vent to.
And they won't listen to it.
Right. So I don't think it's all been, quote, man pouting. I mean, there have been occasions, and I can't think of one right now, but that have been just more emotional. You haven't been happy with something, and I can't think of one. But, you know, when you do it,
doesn't happen that
it's
often.
it's either A, funny to me, or B, it's like he's right. He has a point.
Either way, I win.
Either way, you...
Because I was funny, or I was right.
You made a point either way.
Yeah.
I can't think of one of the funny
And it's not
ones.
about winning. I said I win, but I've never tried to win with you. I tried to win you.
Yeah.
You know, but I won you real easily because you wanted me.
Yeah.
So you won me. I won you.
Yep. That reminds me, you sent me a short the other day of Sadia Khan. She's a relationship psychologist
Just say
person.
what it is.
And she was basically saying that handsome men, I think there was a message in this for me, that handsome men don't have to try as hard they end up being with the less attractive woman. They don't necessarily end up being with the 10, but they choose the lesser attractive woman.
Well, because they go through the attractive women for a while, and then they realize they want somebody that just treats them nicely. You know, they're not looking for somebody that's just super hot with no personality. You know, that they're looking for somebody that wants to be at home, wants to have a family life, wants to go out on Friday night for, you know, maybe a glass of wine and maybe some pizza, or maybe some pasta, or maybe a steak, or, you know, whatever it is, some apps, you know, and just wants that kind of calm, wants to sit at home on a Saturday night and watch a movie, you know, and generally the hottest girls are always going out because they get attention, right? And they get caught in a cycle of going out and looking for guys, and then meeting guys, getting that attention, and then eventually they burn out on it. They get burnt out, or they get burnt too many times, and then they have pretty bad attitudes and not a lot of content, because they spend all their time kind of socializing, not becoming something.
So I realized there's probably a message in there that, okay, I realized when we met, I know I was the girl next door, but I wasn't like the Pamela Anderson girl next door, you know, in whatever that show was.
You were a little overweight. You were round in the face.
But I was young too. When you're young, you do have more chubby cheeks.
You were
and
cute,
stuff.
but you've blossomed into a swan. You really have. You're beautiful and wonderful, and great personality, and fun to be with, and that's why we do our morning talks, why we do our podcast.
So I assumed, you know, I'm at a humble point in my life where I could listen to something and go, I mean, you are handsome. You were quite a catch then. And fortunately,
better catch now.
I did have enough confidence in myself to kind of approach you, you know, but...
You got yourself noticed. You didn't really approach me.
Well...
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of approaching? You have to be in the proximity.
You positioned yourself properly.
Yes.
Wasn't overt, wasn't sexy or sexual. Just, I'm here. And you were saying no to other guys around me. I was trying to set you up, and you know, you just weren't, you know, you weren't into...
I wasn't the hot bombshell walking in the door getting everybody's attention.
Well...
Which is the point of that short.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting back to, is you, it sounds like, had been through the ringer enough with, you know, women who would get attention like that. And
you became a very beautiful, good-looking lady after we were married. As we started moving, you had a few health issues. You had a few family issues. Once you can see it on people, right? That they're carrying a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And once they start letting go of those things and start realizing that they are not those things, right? They start to shift and change, and their body, you'll even see body posture shift, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll see face shape change a little bit, and because it's a smiley face instead of a contemplative, frowny, frustrated face, you know?
Or sad, or
sad,
depressed
yeah.
and
And they're down. You know, they're instead of being up and thinking about the future, they're caught in the past and ruminating. Rumination is a real look, right?
Yeah.
And
it was really a fortuitous time that I met you too, because I was in a point of, we're coming off of a high and coming back from Brazil, feeling very accomplished of myself, just moving into graduation. What's the next stage of my life? So there's a lot of like good energy. It was before the proverbial shite hit the fan with my family, so I wasn't burdened by that. And so I think even my demeanor would have been perfect, you know, like what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, you were ready to take your next step in life, right? I wasn't looking for the next relationship. I wasn't looking for, I was building a business and I was working on things and doing my thing, and you were ready for your next step in life. And so I think a message to guys, when women are at that point, it's a really good time to start a relationship and to commit to a relationship, because we got married relatively quick. We dated for 6 months? We knew each other for 9 months before we got married, roughly.
Yeah, we met in January, started dating in June, and got married in November.
Yeah, so that's a pretty short, quick time frame, right?
Right.
And so I wanted to solidify our relationship and just get into it, right? And we did live together for a few months before we got married, but it wasn't to try things out. It was because we were moving forward and we're going to get married and that kind of thing. So I think that's a real important message to men and women, you know, and you know, get into the relationship and grow together, you know. And I was in a major phase in my life of expanding myself, also building business, you know, learning new things. I was traveling quite a bit, you know, right before I met you and after we met a little bit, and then we just started doing everything together, you know, and that really, it was a dream come true for me, you know, because you weren't angry and vindictive from past relationships. You didn't bring any past you brought your family, who was mostly crazy, but you didn't bring in old boyfriend relationship stuff. Yeah.
There's a short I have out there that's getting some pretty good attention. I find it so interesting what catches people's attention, and it's a message that men need to look out for women, and particularly the dads, the brothers, the uncles, you know, even cousins need to look out for the girls and the young ladies in particular, and the women need to listen, the young ladies and girls. And because just what you said, you know, I didn't come to our relationship with past boyfriends, you know, bad feelings from previous relationships, and I think that was luck. That was fortune, because I had dated other guys. I mean, I was young.
Well, the great thing was we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have.
There's that too.
This was 24 years ago.
But even
we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have, you know.
But even I met you when I was 18. But even then, I could have easily had a couple. The couple of serious relationships I did have could have ended terribly, and I could have been carrying that baggage. So that's where I feel like I was really, really fortunate. Mm-hmm. And I do think that, again, dads, uncles, brothers, cousins, the guys need to look out for the girls and the young ladies, because the more she has those bad experiences, it does build up. I think the women do carry it in them more, you know, where guys can be like, wow, that was crazy, you know, she was crazy, on to the next, you know, where women, you know, they'll be like, what was wrong with me? Why didn't that work out? What happened? Why did he do that? Why did he say that? And you carry it forward. I mean, there's looking, as we do these podcasts and stuff, I just become even more and more grateful, I think, of the good fortune and obviously God looking out for me, that I was prepared, I was who I was, you were who you were. You
were also very mature. When you were going out, you did go out dancing like every other week or something to salsa night, and you weren't drinking, you'd never done any drugs, and you didn't drink until we were married for a few years, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm married.
This is what this is all about. No, it was even years later. I think it wasn't until I was 25 or something. Like, yeah. So yeah, I think, a little bit more background, and I think that's why the men in particular, I say men, I mean the women can look out for the girls also, and it's more so in teaching, like I learned from women about, how to carry yourself would be a way, or, it's those sorts of things, but it was more an etiquette, which I think can also kind of protect you. But the men in particular know what's on guys' minds. And so, they can see, Billy is flirting with Jenny, and they can see, like, okay, Billy's sweet on Jenny, but there's something a little bit more going on, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy and Jenny. Little ditty.
Yeah.
Billy and Jenny.
Jack and Diane. Yeah. So that stemmed from us.
Me being a pouty man stuff.
Yeah.
It's from you buying your first new vehicle, and.
Well, you're going way back, all the way to the beginning.
Well, it was I don't know what it stemmed from then. I'd have to start over at the beginning. Riffing. Do you have any topics you'd like to talk about, or anything you could think of?
Well, something I didn't say in that podcast about me realizing that I was okay. Obviously, apparently, you didn't think I was being the biatch that I thought I was being. Because I knew all the conversation in my head, right? I knew what I was thinking of you in my own head.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, well, thankfully you didn't take it on.
And by the way, I don't want to know.
Yes, no, I won't share with you.
Yeah, don't tell your guy what you think of him, unless it's positive.
Unless it's positive.
Yeah, he doesn't want to know the other stuff.
But what it got me to realize is, okay, all the times that you have been generous with me.
You did talk about that on that.
Yeah, and I named a few ways, but I mean, in general, even a guy who is providing for his family, I think we, quote, expect that. Like, okay, yeah, he's the provider. Of course, it's his job and duty to do this. But no, it's actually still generous.
Well, even in our society, when they go out on the street and ask women, are you a feminist? And they go, yes. And they go, do you think a man should pay for the first date, or should you split the bill? They always say the man should pay. So it even in our society now, even with all the strong anti-male kind of feminist behavior, that the women still say the man should take care of the bill. And so that is a very convoluted message that is given to women that causes a lot of confusion. Like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be strong and bold. When a dad tells a boy be strong, he never says, you don't need women, be strong. He just says, buck up, cowboy up, suck it up, be strong. There's no talk about women at all. But when they tell a woman to be strong, they say, you can do it just like the guys, and you're just as strong as a man, and I think it's a really terrible message. It's terrible to conflate or mix that message, right?
Well, you've pointed that out to me, and it has been very impactful, because you're like, guys don't say in comparison to a woman.
No, guys don't compare themselves to women.
And so if any time, so then I started translating in my own head, okay, this woman just said, I can do it better than any other guy, or women are, what did I hear the other day? I've been listening to this book that is helpful, like as far as women's health, but there's so much about, because it's based on women athletes, and it's very helpful in the sense of like nutrition and how to train, because I'm trying to make sure that I'm in shape enough to keep up with you on the mountain biking track. But so much of it is like, you know what, women, you can keep up with the guys. You know, they do have more fast twitch muscles, but if we chop it down to this, okay, that's one thing where they excel. But we have the long-term stamina muscles.
Yeah.
You know, and I translate that in my head, and I think, okay, yeah,
It's too much of a mixed message. You can't parse it.
Instead of just going, you know what, we have amazing bodies. This is what the woman's body can do.
Well, women should be comparing themselves to women. Period. I mean, why would you? You're not gonna.
If you're gonna compare yourself to someone, you know, like
compare yourself to yourself.
That's I
Where
think the
are
most
you
successful.
at today? Where do you want to be at tomorrow? Where were you yesterday? You know, what things are you learning? What are you training? What are you becoming? And compare yourself to yourself. If you want something, now if you want to go in a race and you're racing other women and you want to beat those women, you got to know what their times are. You got to know how to train that event, or that, you know, if you're going to do a mountain bike race, you know, you're going to have to, you'd kill it in the women's class. I mean, you know, because you ride with me, you know, and you'd kill it. But we'd have to study the competition, right?
Right.
And I'd never let you race against a man. You know, I wouldn't.
But sometimes you can also get too caught up in the competition that you have to still play your game.
No, if you're going to race, you got to be caught up in the competition because you have to win.
But you have to race your race. You know, you can't be looking behind you all the time.
No, you have to race to win.
Yes.
If you're in it to win it, you have to race to win. See, this is the conflict between men and women, right? You're like, no, but I just want to do my best. It's like, well, then you're not racing.
True, but there are times where you can, because you're focusing on the competition, you don't do your best and win the race.
Well, this
right?
is why it's convoluted for women, because you don't think that way when you're training. You do look ahead, you do race ahead, but there'll probably be people in front of you. So you have to race ahead. You have to race the people that are in front of you. Yes, you don't race the people that are behind you.
Mm-hmm.
That are behind you. You. That's why I said you look at their time. So if you had a 2-minute time, and somebody else had a 1 minute 40-second time, they got 20 seconds on you. If you're going to race them, we got to figure out where you're going to find that 20 seconds.
It's a lot. 20 seconds.
Well, you know, in that example. But if you're going to race an hour, and they are a minute ahead of you, you know, you got to find, you know, for every minute, you got to find certain amount of seconds to, you know, to get ahead of them, right? So
right. And do you improve on where you're good, or do you improve on your weaknesses to shave that time?
It might be both. You know, you find you got to have your strength, your stamina, you got to have your capabilities, you know, your dynamic athleticism, your strength and motion. You know, you got to do so many things, you know, and then you got to be
my dynamic athleticism.
Well, then you got to be good at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're going to race mountain bikes, you got to be good on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to throw a javelin, you got to be able to throw. You know,
I throw like a girl.
You can't be the no-armed man and go into the javelin contest. Now somebody will say, yeah, you could, because I see people that are handy-abled that could throw with their foot, you know, and it's like, that's insulting.
Oh my gosh, I'm dripping sweat.
I know, I'm sweating too. It's warm.
I'm okay, but
okay.
I don't mind sweating. I just, every time I feel a drop, I'm like, oh, that's a drop of sweat. I'm also, the coffee also really does it.
Training right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the issue with, that's why men's and women's competitions are separate. And the women have different coaches than the men do. You know, because women are concerned about different things. They have certain times of the month when they can't train. Men don't. Men can train all the time. That's why the men are the warriors. Men are going to combat, you know, because, you know, I mean, things can still happen to men in combat that are similar to things that could happen to women, but women distract too much. You know, men try to defend women. So you take a soldier that's a natural defender, right? You put a woman in his company. Now he's going to be worried about where that woman is. What's she doing? You know, is anybody shooting at her? You know, and you're going to get the whole company killed. You know, so
ultimate fail.
Well, that's why the propaganda is to get all the women in the military, so it distracts our men, our military, the best military in the world. Soon will not be the best military in the world if they continue going down the road they're going down.
So that's been a really interesting mental exercise for me, flipping the script. You know, when women say, as almost always women, right, saying that, you know, this you can do better than men, or something comparing to men.
If you can, it's obvious.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it. That's why men don't say it.
If it's
all we have to do is let's take women soldiers and men soldiers. Let's take them to a slap competition. Let's have them stand across from each other and do the slap competition and see who's standing at the end of the day. That's just slapping. That's not punching, elbowing, crushing your skull into the ground, taking out your bayonet, stabbing someone. That's not being shot. That's not being body slammed on a pylon on the ground so you break your back. That's not having your neck twisted and busted. That's just a slap.
I think.
And who's going to win?
You know,
you got to say it. Who's going to win?
The guys are going to win.
The guys are going to win. Absolutely.
And this is I've had to point this out also in comments that if you've trained with guys, this is so obvious. It's totally obvious. Like when you sent me and Justin to work out at the collie group.
And he was 14.
He was 12. He wasn't even 14.
Okay, he was 12.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm not training you guys anymore. I don't know if you were fed up with it.
No. You guys wanted to go for your certificates.
Yeah, that's what it
And
was.
so I wanted you to train with my instructor and other instructors so that you couldn't whine and complain and quit halfway through and think that I was say something to me that
we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, your son and your wife would never complain about doing extra work.
Well, and it was great because we both, I was homeschooling, I think, at the time. And so it was kind of like gym time. We were both the same size. So for a while, it was really great, you know. But very quickly, I mean, he was already stronger than I was, but, you know, he was already very naturally athletic.
As soon as he started putting on that dynamic muscle strength from those motions, then you couldn't keep up with him, and he was too strong.
I couldn't hold tie pads for him, and we were literally the same size.
Yeah.
Obviously built differently, but literally the same size, and that was astonishing. I mean, I had already worked out with guys and just knew that I had worked out with much bigger guys even relatively the same size, and they were all stronger, even if they were skinny guys.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so darn apparent.
Even if they're smaller than you.
Yeah.
I could put you with a guy I know that's smaller than you, and he'd waste you.
Yeah.
You know, with one arm tied behind his back. You know, and that's
where my dynamic athleticism has to come out.
You're like, no, I got one arm. I can one arm cartwheel out and kick him on the way out. Yeah.
And so I think this practicalness is lost in the world today. And I think, you know, we all know that, I mean, it's very prevalent that a dad's role is extremely important. And when you experience this, so this is something that, even though I was raised in a very feminist environment, like, you know, anything that guys can do, you can do better kind of thing, or you can do anything you want to do. At the same time, my dad was really practical. Like, he wasn't necessarily the one saying that. He was more the one saying, you can do your best. No, you can do better. You know, I think the guy dad type message. And one thing that I remember him saying on a number of occasions, you know, I would come home or something wasn't fair, right? And I remember him specifically saying, you know, life isn't fair. You know, the sooner you can realize that and accept that, the better off you'll be. And it's absolutely true. I mean, because if you just accept that in life things are not going to be fair, you step onto another path of life, you know, and instead of seeing that everything is against you, just going, that's life.
Somebody flying a drone behind us?
Yep, above us.
Huh. All right.
And it's, I think that was a blessing to have been taught early and relatively early in life. I'd say 9 or 10, it probably really sank in. And then you take yourself out of the victim seat. You know, that basically either that everybody's in the victim seat at some point.
Well,
right?
let me point this out, that if you are telling women that they're better than men, that they can do what a man does but better, you're automatically victimizing women. And I think that's the social plan. That's the plan, is to create a victim class and keep that victim class in that space and keep them having problems, keep them striving for things they can never do.
Maybe explain a little bit more why that automatically puts women in the victim seat. That might not be obvious.
Well, why? What? You know, okay, so if a woman says I can do anything a man can do but better, mean,
You wouldn't have to say that.
she's going to fail at a ton of stuff unless she's thinking, well, I'm a better bookkeeper than Bill. I'm a better I can play solitaire better than Frank. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, maybe tennis. Okay, this woman is beating a guy at tennis, but if she's the top female pro, can she beat the top male pro? Because you have to go to the level that you're trying to achieve, right? And if we just mixed all the sports, there'd be no women in sports. They'd all be out with injuries. So I don't see. All I see is that they're victimizing women by making them believe and think that there are things that this is true. That the framework is completely corrupt, and it's a cage. It's a framework. It's a cage that they put women in that they can never get out of, and it creates a victim.
So is it like this, in the manifesting realm, it's to speak that you already are. You are the world champion.
That only works with certain. That only works if you're lined up for something. That only works if people will tell you, I manifested this, and then they tell you about the 20 years they worked to get there, right? Yeah, you did manifest it, day at a time, step at a time, but you're not sitting there going, okay, when we get home, there's going to be $1 million motorhome in our driveway. Let's manifest it, Tara. When we get home, and there it is. There's the title, everything. It's in our name. Somebody just put it there.